They tell you grief has stages. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Nobody mentions the one that comes before all of them. Paperwork. When Ratana died, I didn't get time to fall apart. I got 90 days. 90 days to prove I deserved to stay in the country where we'd built our life, or get on a plane back to a place that stopped feeling like home 15 years ago. The government doesn't care that her side of the bed still smells like jasmine oil. They don't care that I'm 64 and buried my wife in soil. I can't legally stand on past March. Love doesn't translate in visa applications. And when you're standing in an immigration office with a death certificate in one hand and an expired dependent stamp in the other, you realize something nobody tells you about growing old abroad. You're only ever one tragedy away from being a stranger again. If this story speaks to you, leave a comment telling us where you're listening from and what home means to you. Now, this story was shared with us by a viewer who wanted others to understand what happens when the person anchoring your entire legal existence disappears. Overnight, I woke up that Tuesday morning, like every other morning for the past 15 years. The fan was spinning above me, slow and lazy. Light was coming through the curtains, that soft golden kind you only get in Chiang Mai. I rolled over to say good morning to Ratana, and my hand touched her arm. Cold, not cool, cold. I sat up fast, heart hammering in my chest, and looked at her face. She looked peaceful, like she was sleeping. But I knew. I don't know how I knew, but I did. I shook her shoulder. Nothing. I shook harder. Still nothing. I screamed her name. My voice cracked. The sound that came out of me didn't sound human. I called the emergency number, hands shaking so bad I could barely hold the phone. I don't remember what I said. I think I was speaking English and Thai at the same time, neither making sense. The paramedics arrived 20 minutes later. They were calm, professional. One of them checked her pulse, her eyes, then looked at me and shook his head. He said something in Thai I didn't catch. The other one, a younger guy, put his hand on my shoulder and said in broken English, "I'm sorry. She already gone. Brain aneurysm," they told me later. Instant, painless. She probably didn't even wake up. That's supposed to be comforting, I guess. But it's not, because I was right there, inches away, and I didn't know. I didn't feel it. I just kept sleeping while she left. The next few days were a blur. Her family came from Lamphun. Her mother, Prani, wailed so loud the neighbors came outside. Her father, Somkid, stood on the porch smoking cigarette after cigarette, staring at nothing. Her sister Ploy cried into her phone, calling everyone she knew. I stood in the corner of my own house feeling like a stranger. They took over everything. The funeral arrangements, the temple ceremonies, the flowers, the monks. I didn't understand half of what was happening. Everyone was speaking Thai too fast, and I was too numb to ask them to slow down. I just nodded. I signed things. I handed over money when they told me to. At the temple, I sat in the front row while monks chanted. I watched them prepare her body, dress her in white, place her in the ceremonial coffin. I watched her burn. I stood there in the heat, smelling incense and something else I'll never forget, watching smoke rise into the sky, and I felt nothing. Just empty, hollowed out. After the cremation, we went to the district office to register her death. I had to sign paperwork, get copies of the death certificate, all that administrative nonsense you have to do when someone dies. The clerk, a woman in her 20s with long painted nails, processed everything quickly. Then, almost casually, she looked up at me and said in English, "Your visa. You have dependent extension, yes?" I nodded, confused. She continued, "Dependent extension expire with sponsor. When wife die, you must convert to new visa or leave country. 90 days from registration date." I stared at her. She stared back, waiting for me to say something. I didn't know what to say. She handed me a photocopy of some regulation in Thai and English. I took it. I walked outside. Prani was talking to Somkid by the car. Ploy was on her phone. Nobody noticed me standing there in the parking lot, holding Ratana's death certificate in one hand and this piece of paper in the other, realizing I'd just become illegal in the only place that felt like home since I left Newfoundland 15 years ago. I drove back to the townhouse alone. Prani and Somkid went back to Lamphun. Ploy stayed one more night, then left in the morning. Suddenly I was alone. Completely alone. The house felt too big, too quiet. Ratana was everywhere. In the kitchen, where she used to wake up at 5 in the morning to pound some tam in that wooden mortar, singing under her breath. In the garden, where she obsessively watered her jasmine plants and complained about the heat even though she was Thai. In the bedroom, where her floral dresses still hung in the closet, smelling faintly of her perfume. I sat on the couch and looked around and I couldn't breathe. 15 years. 15 years we'd lived here. We'd rented this place in 2010, right after we got married. It was small, but it was ours. She decorated it. She picked the curtains, the furniture, the little Buddha statue by the door. She made it home. I met her when I first moved to Chiang Mai. I'd just gotten divorced back in St. John's. Messy, bitter divorce. My ex-wife kept the house and I kept my resentment. My daughter Emma was 16 at the time and barely spoke to me. I needed to get out. Start over. I'd always wanted to travel, so I applied for a teaching job at a language school in Thailand. Got hired. Flew out 3 weeks later. I didn't know what I was doing. I was 49, alone, teaching English to Thai university students who were half my age. I was drowning in loneliness. Then I met Ratana. She was working at a guest house front desk in the old city. I checked in one night after a long day, exhausted, and she smiled at me. A real smile, not the polite customer service kind. We started talking. I came back the next night just to see her. She laughed at my terrible Thai, tried to teach me the tones. I kept getting them wrong. She said I sounded like a robot. I said she sounded like music. Cheesy, I know, but she liked it. 6 months later, we were married. Her family welcomed me. Her parents were farmers in Lamphun, good people but struggling with debt. I paid it off. Ratana's sister wanted to open a beauty shop. I funded it. They treated me like family, like I belonged. For the first time in years, I felt wanted, needed. I wasn't just some divorced guy teaching English. I was a son-in-law, a husband. I had a purpose, and now it was gone. The clock was ticking. 90 days to convert my visa or leave. I didn't even know where to start. I went to Chiang Mai immigration 3 days later. I wore a clean shirt, brought a folder full of documents. Marriage certificate, rental lease, bank statements, photos of me and Ratana over the years. I waited in line for an hour. When my number was called, I sat down across from an officer, a woman in her 30s with short hair and sharp eyes. She flipped through my documents without expression. I tried to explain. I said, and my wife passed away. I've been living here 15 years. I need to convert my visa. What do I need to do? She looked up at me, face neutral, and said in clipped English, your dependent extension expired with sponsor. You must apply for new visa category. Do you have Thai children? I shook my head. She continued, do you own business in Thailand? No. Do you have work permit? No. Then you apply for retirement visa. Requirements: 800,000 baht in Thai bank account, seasoned 3 months, or 65,000 baht monthly income. Deposit to Thai bank every month for 1 year. I felt my chest tighten. I said, I have savings, about 520,000 baht, and I get a pension 48,000 a month. She nodded slowly, like she already knew where this was going. She said, not enough. You need 800,000 in bank or 65,000 monthly. Your pension is under requirement. You cannot apply. I leaned forward. I said, I've lived here 15 years. My wife is buried here. This is my home. She looked at me with something between pity and impatience. She said, I understand, sir. But the law is the law. You must return to your country. Fix your financial situation. Then reapply properly. I felt the words hit me like a truck. I said, I can't go back. I don't have anything there. She sighed, glanced at the clock on the wall and said, you have 83 days remaining on current stamp. I suggest you use that time to make arrangements. She handed me back my documents. The conversation was over. I walked out of the building and sat on a bench outside, staring at the parking lot, feeling like a ghost. The next day I drove to Lamphun to see Ratana's family. I thought maybe they'd help. Maybe they'd understand. Prani was in the kitchen when I arrived, cooking something on the stove. Some kid was on the porch smoking. Ploy was there too, sitting on the steps scrolling through her phone. I sat down with Prani and told her about the visa problem. I explained the money requirement, the timeline, everything. She listened quietly, stirring the pot. When I finished, she looked at me and said, So you go back to Canada? I corrected her. Newfoundland. It's part of Canada, but different. She waved her hand like it didn't matter. She said, you sell house? I said, I don't own the house. It's a rental, she frowned. Then she asked, you sell furniture, TV? I didn't understand where this was going. I said, maybe, why? She shrugged. If you go back to Canada, you don't need. We can use. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Some kid came in from the porch smelling like tobacco. He sat down, looked at me and said, the motorbike. Ratana's motorbike. Still registered her name. We take, yes? I stared at him. The motorbike I bought her 3 years ago for her birthday. She loved that thing, rode it everywhere. And now, less than a week after her funeral, they wanted it. I looked at Ploy. She was still on her phone, not even pretending to care. I'd paid for her beauty school, bought equipment for her shop, and she couldn't even look at me. I realized something right then, sitting in that kitchen. I was never family. I was funding. Ratana was the bridge, and without her I was just another Farang with money they'd already spent. I stood up, said I had to go, and walked out. Some kid called after me, asking about the motorbike. I didn't answer. I got in my truck and drove back to Chiang Mai, feeling more alone than I did the day I landed in Thailand. That night, I met a British guy named Colin at a bar near Thapei Gate. I'd seen him around before, one of those expats who's been in Thailand so long, he talks more Thai than English. I told him about my situation. The visa, the money, the clock. He listened, sipping his beer, then leaned in and said, Mate, you need a fixer. I said, a what? He said, a visa agent, someone who handles this stuff under the table. They know people. Grease the wheels. Get extensions approved even when you don't technically qualify. I shook my head. That sounds illegal. He laughed. Welcome to Thailand. Half the expats here are on dodgy visas. You think all those retirees actually have 800,000 in the bank? Please, they pay agents to make it look legit. It's how it works. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through his contacts and wrote down a number on a napkin. He said, Guy's name is Crit. Tell him Colin sent you. He'll sort you out. I took the napkin, folded it and put it in my pocket. I didn't want to, but I was running out of options. 2 days later, I called the number. A man answered in Thai, then switched to English when I stumbled through my introduction. His voice was smooth, confident. He said, yes, Colin told me about you. You need extension, no problem. Meet me tomorrow, we talk. We met at a cafe near the moat. Crit was younger than I expected. Maybe early 30s, slicked back hair, fake Rolex on his wrist, too white smile. He ordered an iced coffee and got straight to business. He said, so your wife died. Visa expired. You need emergency extension, correct? I nodded. He continued, I can arrange. 30-day emergency, renewable twice. Total 90 days. Gives you time to fix financial situation or find new solution. I asked, how much? He leaned back in his chair, casual. 60,000 baht, all-inclusive. I handle everything. You just sign papers. I hesitated. That was a lot of money. He saw my face and leaned in, voice dropping. Listen, my friend. You think immigration cares about your sad story? They process 50 cases every day. Farang die, farang leave, farang overstay. You are just number to them. But me, I know people inside. I make problems disappear. You give me money, you get stamp, you stay. Simple. I felt sick, but I was desperate. I said, okay, what do you need? He smiled. 30,000 now. Rest when stamp is approved. 2 weeks maximum. I went to the ATM, withdrew the cash, came back and handed it to him in an envelope. He counted it quickly, nodded and said, good, I call you soon. Then he stood up, shook my hand and walked out. I sat there for a long time, staring at my empty coffee cup, feeling like I just made a deal with the devil. What choice did I have? 74 days left. I stopped showering regularly after that. What was the point? I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't seeing anyone. I ate instant noodles at 3 in the morning and drank whiskey at noon. The townhouse felt like a tomb. Ratana's things were everywhere, but she wasn't. I started talking to her photo. I'd set up a small altar in the living room, like they do in Thai homes. Her picture in the center, surrounded by flowers, incense, a glass of water. I'd light the incense every morning and sit there, telling her about my day. I'd say, I went to immigration today. They said I have to leave. I don't know what to do. Sometimes I'd apologize. I'm sorry I didn't notice you were having headaches. You said you were fine. I believed you. I should have taken you to the doctor. I'd ask her questions I knew she couldn't answer. Where do I go? What do I do? The neighbors started avoiding me. I'd see them in the street, and they'd look away, walk faster, I get it. I was the Farang whose wife died, the one who looked like he was losing it. Maybe I was. The landlord called one afternoon. He was polite but direct. Mr. Lyle, your lease ends in April. Will you renew? I didn't know. I said, I'll let you know. He paused, then said, okay, but I need answers soon. I have other people interested. Translation, he wanted me out. One night I woke up screaming. I'd been dreaming I was at the airport. Bags packed, boarding pass in hand, walking toward the gate. And there was Ratana, standing by the window watching me. She didn't say anything. Just looked at me with this sad, disappointed expression. I tried to go to her, but my legs wouldn't move. I tried to call her name, but no sound came out. Then I woke up sweating, heart pounding. I couldn't fall back asleep. I sat on the edge of the bed until sunrise, staring at the wall, wondering how much longer I could hold on. 2 weeks passed. I called Crit, no answer. I called again an hour later. Still nothing. The next day I called 5 times. Voicemail full. Panic started creeping in. I went to the cafe where we'd met. I asked the staff if they knew him. The girl at the counter looked at me blankly and said, nobody named Crit work here. This is customer cafe. I showed her a photo I'd taken of him on my phone discreetly when he wasn't looking. She shook her head. Never see. I called Colin. He picked up on the 3rd ring. I said, Crit's not answering. I can't find him. Colin sighed. Mate, his number's disconnected. I tried calling him yesterday for something else. Got nothing. My chest tightened. I said, you told me he was legit. Colin's voice got defensive. I said I heard about him. I never used him personally. Some guy at a bar mentioned him. I thought he was solid. I hung up. I stood in the middle of the cafe, hands shaking, realizing what happened. I'd been scammed. 30,000 baht gone, no paperwork, no extension, no anything. I went to the police station. I filed a report. The officer, a middle-aged man with a bored expression, took notes while I explained. When I finished, he looked up and said, you have evidence? Contract receipt. I shook my head. He shrugged. Difficult case. Farang need to be more careful. Many scam in Chiang Mai. I file report, but he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I walked out of the station and sat on the curb, watching motorbikes whip past, tourists laughing, life moving forward like nothing was wrong. I had 60 days left. I'd lost 30,000 baht. And I had no plan. I hired a lawyer. I found her online, a woman named Cyrilak who specialized in visa law. Her office was in a bland building near the airport. She was in her 40s, professional, no nonsense. I liked that. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted solutions. I sat across from her, and she reviewed my documents, bank statements, pension records, rental history. She didn't say anything for a long time, just flipped through pages, making notes. Finally, she looked up and said, okay, let's be realistic. You have 520,000 baht in savings. Retirement visa requires 800,000, seasoned 3 months. You don't have that. Your pension is 48,000 monthly. You need 65,000. You don't have that either. I nodded. I already knew this. She continued. You have no Thai children, so guardian visa is not option. You don't have work permit or company, so business visa not possible. She paused. Then she said, have you considered remarrying? I felt my stomach turn. I said, my wife just died. She nodded, unbothered. I understand, but legally it is fastest solution. You marry Thai national. Apply for dependent visa again. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I said, I'm not doing that, she shrugged. Okay, then other option. Leave Thailand for 6 months. Build savings. Return on tourist visa. Convert to retirement when you meet financial requirements. I asked, well, what if I just stay? Overstay? She looked at me seriously. Overstay fine is 500 baht per day, but after 90 days overstay, you get flagged in system. After 1 year, you are blacklisted, banned from re-entry. Maybe 5 years, maybe 10, maybe permanent. Is that what you want? I didn't answer. She leaned back in her chair. Mr. Lyle, I know this is difficult, but Thai immigration law is very clear. I can't change it. I can only help you work within it. I asked how much I owed her. She said 8,000 baht for the consultation. I paid her in cash and left. I was running out of money. I was running out of time. That night I sat in front of my laptop searching expat forums. I found threads about overstaying. Some guy said they'd done it for years, just paying the fine whenever they got caught. Others warned about detention centers, deportation bans. One guy, an American, wrote about how he'd overstayed for 12 years, got arrested at a checkpoint, spent 2 weeks in a detention center, then got deported and banned for life. He said he'd left behind a house, a business, a girlfriend, everything. Gone. I read that post 3 times. I kept thinking about what the lawyer said. Blacklisted, banned, never coming back. I thought about St. John's, my ex-wife living there with her new husband. My daughter Emma, who hadn't called me in 4 years. What would I even do there? Live in some basement apartment? Work part-time at a hardware store? Watch the snow fall and wait to die? I looked at Ritana's photo on the altar. I thought if I were gone too, the problem would solve itself. I wouldn't have to leave her. I wouldn't have to face the life I ran away from. I got up, went to the bathroom and opened the medicine cabinet. There was a bottle of sleeping pills Ritana used to take for her insomnia. I'd kept them, not sure why. I opened the bottle, counted them. 12 pills. I stood there holding the bottle, staring at my reflection in the mirror. I looked old, tired, lost. I thought about taking them, all of them, just going to sleep and not waking up. Then I saw her face in my mind, not smiling, disappointed like in the dream. I heard her voice, soft but firm, saying, "Lyle, what are you doing?" I closed the bottle, put it back in the cabinet, shut the door. I walked back to the living room, sat on the floor in front of her altar and cried. Not yet. 50 days left. A week later, someone knocked on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I thought maybe it was the landlord, come to pressure me about the lease. I opened the door, and there was a woman standing there, maybe mid-40s, wearing a simple blouse and jeans. She smiled and said, "Hi, Lyle, I'm Noi, Ritana's cousin." I remembered her. She'd been at the funeral, quiet, standing in the back. She worked at a hospital in Bangkok, I think. I said, "Hi, come in." She stepped inside, looked around at the half-empty house and didn't comment. She sat down at the table and I made tea. We sat in awkward silence for a moment. Then she said, "I heard from Prani about your visa problem." I nodded. She continued, "I'm sorry. That must be very stressful." I said, "Yeah, it is." She sipped her tea, then said, "I wanted to talk to you about Ritana." My chest tightened. She said, "She called me about a week before she died." I looked up. Noi's eyes were soft. She said, "She was worried about you. She said you seemed sad lately, withdrawn. She wanted to take you on a trip, maybe to the beach, to cheer you up. She said she was going to surprise you." I felt something crack inside me. I said, "She never mentioned it." Noi nodded. "She wanted it to be a surprise. She was planning it when..." She didn't finish. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "She loved you. Really loved you. I know her family can be difficult, but Ritana, she saw you. She appreciated everything you did." I started crying. I couldn't stop it. Noi didn't let go of my hand. After a while, I wiped my eyes and said, "I don't know what to do. I can't meet the visa requirements. I can't stay." She was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she said, "I have a friend. He works at immigration in Bangkok. Changwatana office. He's a good man. I can't promise anything, but maybe there's something. Compassionate discretion. Humanitarian grounds. It's rare, but it exists." I looked at her, not daring to hope. She said, "Let me make a call. See if he'll meet with you." I nodded, throat too tight to speak. She pulled out her phone and stepped outside. 10 minutes later, she came back in and said, "He'll see you next week. Bring all your documents." For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. It wasn't hope exactly, but it was close. 2 weeks later, I took a bus to Bangkok. 6 hours on a cramped seat, watching the countryside blur past. Noi met me at Changwatana Immigration. The building was huge, packed with people. We waited in line, then she led me to a side office. A man in uniform sat behind a desk, stern-faced, maybe mid-50s. Noi introduced us. "This is Officer Sumjit. He's the friend I mentioned." Somjit gestured for me to sit. He looked at Noi and said something in Thai. She nodded and stepped outside. Then it was just the two of us. He said, "Tell me your situation." I took a breath and told him everything. The marriage, 15 years in Chiang Mai, Ratana's death, the visa expiration, the financial shortfall, the scam, the lawyer, the countdown. I laid it all out, voice shaking. When I finished, I handed him the folder of documents, marriage certificate, tax records, proof of her funeral expenses, photos of us over the years. He went through everything slowly, methodically. He didn't say a word. The silence was unbearable. Finally, he looked up and said, "You've been here a long time." I nodded. He continued, "Normally, the law is clear. No financial qualification, no visa, but..." He paused. "There is a provision, humanitarian extension, very rare. 30 days. Renewable once under extreme circumstances. Requires director approval." I felt my heart hammering. He said, "I can recommend it. Given your history, your wife's recent death, your age, 60 days total. But understand this is not permanent solution. You must use that time to fix your financial situation or make other arrangements." "Understood?" I nodded quickly. Yes, I understand." "Thank you," he said. "I'll submit the paperwork today. Come back in 1 week for approval." I thanked him again, almost unable to speak. When I walked out, Noi was waiting. She smiled. I hugged her. I don't think I'd hugged anyone since Ratana died. She said, "I told you. He's a good man." I said, "I don't know how to thank you." She said, "Just take care of yourself." That's what Ratana would want. I took the bus back to Chiang Mai that evening. It was dark by the time I got home. I sat in front of Ratana's altar and lit incense. I said, "We got 60 more days. I don't know what happens after that. But it's something." 38 days just became 98. I returned to Chiang Mai and started making decisions I didn't want to make. I needed money. I needed to hit 800,000 baht somehow. So I started selling everything. The furniture first. I posted ads online. A young couple came to look at the couch. They haggled and I let them have it for less than it was worth. They took it away in a pickup truck. Then the TV, the coffee table, the bookshelf I'd built myself. Piece by piece, the house emptied. I sold my camera gear, stuff I'd collected over 15 years, lenses, tripods, filters. A photographer came by, looked through it all and offered me half what it was worth. I took it. I sold the motorbike, Ratana's motorbike, the one her father wanted. I didn't give it to him. I sold it to a dealer and pocketed the cash. I sold kitchen appliances, pots and pans. The rice cooker Ratana used every single day. I sold books. I sold tools. I sold everything that wasn't nailed down. Every sale felt like erasing her, like dismantling the life we'd built together. One afternoon, a Thai couple came to look at the dining table. It was solid teak, beautiful. Ratana had picked it out at a market in Lamphun, haggled with the seller for an hour until she got the price she wanted. We'd eaten every meal at that table for 15 years, birthdays, anniversaries, quiet mornings over coffee. The couple loved it. They smiled, excited, talking about how it would fit perfectly in their new home. They loaded it onto a truck, tied it down and drove away. I stood in the empty dining room, staring at the space where the table used to be, and I couldn't breathe. By the end of the month, I'd raised another 180,000 baht. Combined with what I had left, I was at 700,000, still short, but closer. Out of nowhere, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. A woman's voice said, "Dad?" I froze. It was Emma, my daughter. I hadn't heard her voice in 4 years. I said, "Emma?" She said, "Yeah, hi." There was a long pause. Then she said, "I heard about Ratana. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to say." I managed, "Thanks." She continued, "I saw it on Facebook. One of your friends posted something. I didn't know if I should call, but I wanted to check on you." "Are you okay?" I lied. "I'm fine." Another pause. Then she said, "I've been thinking about you, about us. I know things have been difficult, but I'm sorry. I should have called more." I felt a lump in my throat. I said, "It's okay." She said, "I'm married now. Did you know that?" I didn't. She continued, "His name's Aaron. We got married 2 years ago, and I'm pregnant. Due in June." I sat down. I said, That's great, congratulations. She said, thanks. I was hoping maybe you'd come visit. Meet Aaron? See the baby when he's born? I didn't answer. She said, I know it's been a long time, but you're still my dad. And I want my son to know his grandfather. I felt the weight of it pressing down on me. Family, a grandchild, a reason to go back. But it was in St. John's, a place I'd spent 15 years trying to forget. I said, I'll think about it. She said, okay, just think about it. I miss you. We hung up. I sat there for a long time staring at the phone. I had a grandchild coming, a daughter who wanted me back in her life. But Thailand was home. Ratana was here. Her grave was here. How do you choose between the dead and the living? At the 60-day mark, I went back to Bangkok. Officer Somjit processed my second humanitarian extension. 30 more days. I thanked him. He nodded, then leaned in slightly and said, off the record, I tell you something. I waited. He continued, some retirees, they do border runs. Go to Cambodia, Laos, come back on tourist visa. Repeat every 60-90 days. Not legal for living long-term, but if you're quiet, immigration often doesn't notice. Not advice, just information. I understood. He was giving me a loophole, a way to stay, even if it meant living in limbo. I said, thank you. He said, good luck. I walked out of the building into the Bangkok heat. I felt strange. Not relieved. Not hopeful, just calm. I wasn't saved, but I wasn't finished yet. I had 30 more days to decide if I was willing to live like that, or if it was finally time to let go. The townhouse was almost empty now. I'd sold everything except a mattress, a chair, and Ratana's altar. The landlord had stopped calling. I think he knew I wasn't renewing. I spent my days walking around Chiang Mai, visiting places we used to go. The temple where we got married, the market where she bought vegetables every Sunday, the coffee shop where she'd meet her friends and gossip in rapid Thai while I sat quietly, pretending to understand. I went to her grave in Lamphun. I hadn't been since the funeral. It was simple. A small stone marker with her name and dates. I sat in the grass and talked to her. I said, I don't know what to do. Emma wants me to come back. There's a grandchild coming. But you're here, and if I leave, it feels like I'm leaving you. The wind rustled through the trees. I said, I'm trying. I really am. But I'm so tired. I sat there until the sun started to set, then drove back to Chiang Mai. That night, Emma sent me ultrasound photos, a tiny blurry shape. My grandson. She wrote, his name's going to be Jack. I thought you'd want to know. I stared at the photo for a long time. A new life. A second chance. But it was there and I was here. It was my last night before the final extension expired. Tomorrow I'd take a bus to the Lao border, cross over, turn around, come back on a 30-day tourist stamp. It was humiliating, exhausting, unsustainable, but it bought time. I'd been messaging Emma more over the past few weeks. She sent photos of the nursery they were setting up. She talked about baby names, asked for advice. She said, I really hope you'll come visit after he's born. I still hadn't answered. I didn't know how. I sat in the empty living room, in front of Ratana's altar. I lit the incense. I said, it's been 89 days since you left. I'm still here, barely, but I'm here. I thought about the years we had. The mornings where we'd sit on the balcony, drinking coffee, watching the city wake up. The monsoon rains that flooded the streets and made us laugh. The quiet, easy love that didn't need words. Immigration could take my visa. They could take my address, but they couldn't take that. I made my decision. I'd do the border run. I'd keep fighting to stay. And if one day they finally forced me out, I'd leave knowing I did everything I could to stay in the place where I was happiest. Not because I was stubborn. Because she was still here. In the jasmine plants. In the temple bells at dawn. In the language I still couldn't quite speak, but kept trying to learn. I blew out the candle. Tomorrow I'd cross the border. Tomorrow I'd come back, and I'd keep coming back until they stopped letting me. Because this was home, and I wasn't ready to leave. 89 days since she died, and I was still here. For now, that was enough.